Very happy to see all of you again. It's been a few months since we've seen each other, and we're gathered today to talk about entrepreneurship skills and developing entrepreneurial mindsets for young people. This is the fifth workshop in our series, and I'm going to pass the floor immediately to Ruth Passerman, Director of Funds, Programming, and Implementation from DG Employment, for a welcome. So Ruth, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. We are, we have this program, Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Academy. I'm the responsible director in DG Employment, dealing with funds, programming, and implementation, and also social entrepreneurship, and that is why you have to listen to me today. You've been around. I mean, this is already the fifth of the series, I understood, and I think I already presented to you before, and we had interacted and participated in a session, which I found at the time quite interesting to hear the different examples of practice that you were, of the experiences that you had. And this is, I think, the key of this program, to be able to exchange experiences and good practices, also with experts, to improve the mutual understanding on what is needed for entrepreneurship of young people, and what is needed to create the ecosystem that, because we are not going to be the entrepreneurs of the future, but we can help pulling together all the experiences and good practices to make to give you something more, to equip you better for the future. But it is about mutual understanding, because also we have to understand, see what we can do to improve the ecosystem. And when I say we, it's not just the European Union, but it is also the national, the regional, the local level, the universities, training courses, etc. So this is the goal of this seminar. It is in part of more of a framework where the European Commission is putting a lot of attention both on competitiveness. I mean, this is one of the mantras of this new commission, to focus on improving European competitiveness, but also on young people, and how Europe can help young people. So in this sense, this program matches these two priorities of the European Union. And we are actually doing quite a lot of work on the issue of skilling, upskilling and reskilling, allowing people to be able to work throughout their working life, and to be able to also reinvent themselves, if you want, because the world is changing very fast, and therefore it's not anymore possible to do like my dad, who worked all his life in the same company that hired him as soon as he started working. So it is in this very mobile and transition world that we have to focus on how we can look at entrepreneurship, the entrepreneurship mindset, which is useful not just for being an entrepreneur, but also for being the entrepreneur of yourself throughout your career, even if you don't end up being an entrepreneur, if you see what I mean. You are discussing today also the entrepreneurship competence framework. It will be presented. It's one of the projects of the European Commission, which identifies the various building blocks that are necessary. Let's say, not all and not everyone can have everything, but it gives an idea of what the kind of skills and competencies that one should be looking for. Okay, I think I've talked enough. As I said, I see the purpose of this seminar is for both of us to learn. I mean, you from the experiences and the experts, but also us on how we can do better. So looking forward to hearing your views. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruth. It's great to see you again. And
great to see you.
We're going to pass the floor right over to Dr. John Potter from the OECD for a quick welcome. John is the head of unit in the Entrepreneurship Policy and Analysis Unit. Over to you, John.
Yes, well, hello, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here for this workshop that the fifth workshop. Yes, as Ruth said, it's all about learning from each other, and to have a sounding board for policy in terms of what policy needs to be doing, how policy can actually help young people in entrepreneurship. So let's talk about that today. Get your ideas, and hopefully you'll hear something interesting. What we're putting a lot of store on exchanging amongst ourselves and building networks, new networks. So what we've done, you will have noticed, is we've put new countries together in this workshop. So you've now got the opportunity to exchange some ideas and connect with others in YEPA who you might not have had the chance to interact with yet because you're with new countries today. And of course, today we've got a new topic. The topic for today is about entrepreneurship skills and mindsets among young people. Um, and so let's talk about how to get a pipeline of young people who are creative and entrepreneurial and may decide that they wish to take the risk of starting a business, and hopefully will decide in a knowledgeable way about how to do that and how to manage the risks. Um, Now, like the European Union with its competitiveness, agenda and its youth agenda, the OECD, of course, has very similar agendas because these two things are, of course, critical to our futures. But we've got one important document I wanted to draw your attention to if you aren't aware of it already, which is the OECD recommendation on creating better opportunities for young people. So you can look that up on the internet. It came out in 2022. It is it's a declaration basically. It's a recommendation. It recommends what governments should do to create better opportunities for young people, and all of the OECD member countries have signed up to this, and that means they've committed to take action in this area. Um, and we will be monitoring them in terms of the actions taken. So that's across OECD and, of course, with the EU countries involved. There's a part of the recommendation which is 3.4, which commits to promoting equitable access to entrepreneurship through counselling, training of entrepreneurial competencies, and access to finance and networks. So what we need now is to support governments to do that. So the will is there, the political will is there, but what are the methods to do that? So hopefully the YEPA is one of the tools that is going to help governments and youth entrepreneurship agencies to act effectively. We're going to talk about it today. We've got an agenda with case studies, with presentations, group discussions, and an opportunity for you to network. There are a few questions that we want to put on the table and try and answer. So start thinking about these questions. What skills are the most critical for young entrepreneurs to develop? How can young people be empowered to use entrepreneurial mindsets outside of business creation? How can young people learn to assess the quality of the information on entrepreneurship, particularly online content? How do you assess the quality of the online content about entrepreneurship and how to be an entrepreneur? It's not all good quality. How about the trainers? What about the tools and resources that trainers need to be able to successfully deliver entrepreneurship skills training programs for young people? And the last one would be about the advantages and disadvantages of different formats of training. So, what's better, face to face or online or hybrid? And what makes for success in delivering entrepreneurship skills? So that's for today. We'll get onto that in a second. There's some news to share about YEPA and upcoming events. We've got a sixth workshop online in May or June. We haven't chosen the date, but as soon as we have, we will tell you. And we're also happy that we'll be able to bring the YEPA community back again together in person in Brussels, and that will be on the 6th to 7th of October. And we don't know if my connection is working, but I'll finish quite quickly. So 6th to 7th of October is that. And just thanks very much for your participation in the YAPA, and please keep doing it. You're sort of representatives of the whole youth entrepreneurship movement in your countries. Try and see yourself as such. Pass on information, bring stuff up to us, and maybe you want to organize a YEPA side event in your country. So if you do, get in touch with us and we'll work out how to do it with you. Okay, thanks very much.
Great, thank you, John. We're all very excited about the opportunity to get together again in person in October. So hopefully everyone's noted that date in their agenda. We're going to pass the floor now to Andre, who's from the Ministry of Economy, Entrepreneurship and Tourism in Romania. And you might recall that each of these workshops tends to have a country that is co-hosting it with the OECD and the EU. And we've taken this approach because a lot of people have identified various issues that are of particular interest in their country where there's a lot happening. And so in this case, Romania is one of the countries that said, you know what, this is a very important issue for us. We'd like to be engaged in the workshop. So we've given them an opportunity. We'll hear later on about some cases from Romania, but I'm really happy to pass the floor to Andre for a few words to welcome us and tell us what's happening in Romania. Andre.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see you all again. It is a privilege to stand before you today as we gather to explore this topic of profound significance, the cultivation of entrepreneurial skills and mindset among young people, and to tell you a little bit about how we in Romania, we want to tackle this subject. We live in an era marked by rapid technological advancement and ever-evolving economic landscapes. Fostering entrepreneurship is not merely beneficial, but it is essential. And we believe the sooner, the better. We've tried to, I mean, we're actively trying to involve youth entrepreneurship in our the programs we have, and we get all this information from everywhere, YEPA inclusively, and we try to put it in our documentation and the way we kind of look into the new beneficiaries for our programs. It is a very dynamic environment, and the ability to think creatively, take initiative, and adapt to change is indispensable. We believe we have to empower young people to become visionary problem solvers, resilient leaders, and innovators who are equipped to navigate complexity and drive positive change. Furthermore, we promote entrepreneurship among youth, and we see it as an investment in individual potential. It is also, we see it as a strategic policy priority with a far-reaching societal implication. We believe by installing an entrepreneurial mindset, we manage to empower young people to create their own opportunities, stimulate economic growth, and contribute to job creation. Startup and SMEs are pivotal drivers of innovation and economic development. Moreover, fostering entrepreneurship cultivates resilience, independence, and proactive approach to life challenges. It empowers young people to shape their own destinies, preparing them not merely for participate in the workforce, but to lead and inspire as change makers of tomorrow. Now, I want to keep it short, and before concluding, I would like to take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt gratitude for graciously providing me with a platform to share my thoughts on such vital issues. We are grateful and we believe your commitment to empower future generation is truly commendable, and your vision serves us as an inspiration to all. As we proceed with today's discussion, let us recognize the importance of investing in youth entrepreneurship. By nurturing entrepreneurship talent and ambition, we invest in a more resilient, innovative, and prosperous future for all. I would like to thank you all again, and I'm here for if there's any questions later on.
Great. Thank you very much, Andre. You've highlighted a number of very important issues that we're going to try to pick up today, both in the sense of, helping young people be prepared and equipped to successfully start a business, but also to help them navigate and succeed in other parts of their career and life. So we'll pick up on these points as we go through the agenda today. Before we move any further, I just want to quickly walk you through the plan for today. You should have all seen the agenda. So we're going to, as usual, present the background note that we've shared to set the scene. And then we'll have a few keynote presentations. And you might recall that we sent out a survey. And so we've tried to respond to the issues that were raised in the survey of, what people are interested in learning about. So we'll have one presentation on financial literacy, and we'll have another on the Entrepreneur framework, which is about, how do we define skills? What exactly are the competencies and how do we measure these? Then we'll have a break. And then we've got an innovation. A lot of people have been asking us for more opportunities to exchange. And so we're going to try to have a little networking break. And so when we come back from the break, we'll have an opportunity to catch up and introduce ourselves in smaller groups. Then we've got some case studies, and then we'll move into roundtable discussions. So that's the plan. We're more or less on time so far. So I will pass it over to Helen, who will walk us through the background note and help set the scene for the discussions today. Helen, over to you.
Thank you, David. Hopefully you see my screen.
Yes, looks good.
Perfect. Wonderful. Except I can't see my screen. There it goes. Okay, so as David mentioned, this is just a presentation on the discussion note that we circulated. So it covers the overall topic for today's workshop, which is developing entrepreneurship skills and mindsets among young people and why this is an important policy area for us and for governments. So overall, the last decade, we've seen that many governments have been increasingly supporting young people in entering the labor market, including through business creation and self-employment. They have introduced a number of broad efforts as well, which was mentioned during the welcoming remarks, including the Entrepreneur framework, the European Year of Skills, or as John mentioned, the OECD recommendation on creating better opportunities for young people. We'll also talk about a new program from the OECD called the Youth Policy Toolkit, which also aims to support governments in further supporting young people in developing their skills and entering the labor market. But one of the main focuses of all of these initiatives is helping to foster young people and support them in developing their entrepreneurial mindsets and developing skills. And so this means that young people might not necessarily use that to create businesses, but by having an entrepreneurial mindset, young people are more primed to transform their ideas into action. And this can be in variety of different ways. Similarly, entrepreneurship skills are being recognized as a valuable set of transversal skills. And so not all of these skills will be necessary for business success, but possessing them is likely to increase the quality and sustainability of the businesses created by these young entrepreneurs. They also tend to benefit from a range of skills of starting and managing a business, just like any other entrepreneur, as well as workplace skills like an employee or other technical skills and business entrepreneurial skills. So overall, the conversation today will talk about this set of transversal skills, how the skills may evolve as new business models and practices emerge, and how best that policy and programs can work to support young people in achieving these skills. We also picked up a bit of these conversations in previous YEPA workshops, including the one on green entrepreneurship. As we've seen, this might require some specific skills for certain sectors in terms of complying with efficiency and emission standards. We've also talked about the introduction of AI and new innovative technologies that will require new skills or possibly reskilling among young people so that they can better work with machine learning or data or coding. So we need to continue to think about how these skills will evolve with the development of digital and innovative technologies, how we can better equip young people for the digital and green transitions, and how we need to foster ongoing learning to help young people adapt to new challenges and leverage emerging opportunities more efficiently. So while there's a lot happening and many efforts have been made over the last 10 years, young people tend to still have issues in terms of recognizing their skills and knowledge that are needed for business creation. So we see that there's a gap between how many young people report that they have the needed entrepreneurship skills compared to those of adults. So we see about 4 in 10 young people across the EU reporting that, whereas about 50% of adults believe that they have the skills and knowledge needed to successfully run and operate a business. We've also seen from other surveys like the Flash Eurobarometer survey that skills is still a very common barrier stopping young people. About 31% of respondents reported that skills and knowledge blocks many young people from starting a business. While we see that 4 in 10 might be a pretty good number, we also have to remember that young people's confidence in having skills and knowledge may be slightly overestimated. They tend to overestimate their abilities and underestimate the challenges that they will likely encounter. And we also see that this varies across country, and this is due to a number of different reasons, including social attitudes towards entrepreneurship, resources and support, as well as entrepreneurship education and training opportunities. So what are the benefits of these type of capacity building activities? We see that young people can gain valuable skills and knowledge, and it can help them in a career regardless if they go on to start a business. These opportunities help to encourage young people in gaining transferable skills, which in the end makes them more employable. And we have seen that the wider benefits of participating in these programs are becoming more and more recognized. So they help to generate more positive self-perceptions and increase self-confidence among young people. They help to foster entrepreneurial mindsets and help young people learn how to work in more flexible ways. Preparing young people for the future of work is also a very important outcome of these training programs, and especially with the digital and green transitions, as I mentioned previously. Also, we see that young people who participate in programs often have an easier time in terms of stimulating growth and job creation and harnessing their entrepreneurial talent so they're able to scale their companies better and in the long term. And it also helps to address unemployment among young people by upskilling and reskilling them. There are also so many different types of formats of the entrepreneurship training schemes, and we'll talk about those throughout the workshop in our case study presentations, as well as the roundtable discussions, because each approach has various positives and drawbacks. So for instance, we see that sometimes training programs are offered as standalone schemes, while others are offered in integrated packages. Oftentimes we see that coaching and training or mentoring is also paired with financial services and other types of networking initiatives. So these different formats serve different purposes in terms of the mode of delivery, the themes covered, intensity, or frequency. And we need to keep in mind that these training support programs should be adjusted to help address the different needs of young people, but also the different profiles. So the needs and ambitions of the young people aren't necessarily the same across all youth. It's very important to keep in mind that they have different entrepreneurial ambitions, objectives, and they're also starting from a different base. We've also seen that young people are starting to look for entrepreneurship skills in different areas. While schools and universities remain the primary source that young people seek entrepreneurship help from, we see that online content creators are emerging as a very popular choice, which is a shift away from traditional pathways. So this signals a few things: that young people's have a growing preference on on-demand information, accessible information, and they're increasingly using digital platforms to access key sources of information. While this might be more accessible and engaging, dynamic perhaps for young people because it's tailored to their tailored content for their interests, there's also a hesitation in terms of the accuracy and credibility of these non-official sources. Unlike formal entrepreneurship training courses, online content is not always verified, and people might not always be the expert in their fields. So we need to help young people in terms of judging and assessing what type of information is useful and accurate, and helping them not to be vulnerable to misinformation around business creation or the feasibility of starting a business. Content creators might lead to false optimism, provide inaccurate information on legal requirements, and create actually more barriers for young people who are interested in entrepreneurship. So one of the key skills that we're seeing now is that young people need to have critical thinking and digital literacy skills in order to maximize the benefit of these accessible sources. We also want to talk about how to design effective support schemes. As I mentioned previously, it's really important to tailor programs so that they're addressing the unique needs and goals of young people. And also to do it at various points of the life cycle of a business. So the young people who are just starting out in terms of help with business ideation or business plan have very different needs to young people who are looking to scale their businesses, who might benefit more from acceleration support services. This also goes into the impact of the format used. So each one has a different objective and a different means of supporting young people. We see that longer and more intensive training formats tend to have stronger impacts. However, they come with a higher delivery cost. So these need to be weighed as we consider how to design and implement support programs. We also see that young people, and also, again, the different profiles of young people have different preferences that should be considered. So they're looking for online services, but many of these rely on having targeted outreach to young people. And it's important to make sure that youth that don't have the digital literacy skills aren't cut out from support services. And lastly, another key component is that entrepreneurship trainers who are working with young people we need to make sure that they have the relevant knowledge, tools, and experience to really help young people and engage them in these training programs. So what are governments doing? As I mentioned, over the last decade, many of them have been actively prioritizing supporting young people and entering the labor market. Nearly 90% of EU member states offer tailored entrepreneurship training schemes for youth. Many of these are youth dedicated, meaning they're only for young people. A majority of EU member states offer tailored and/or dedicated coaching and mentoring for youth. We also see about 2/3 have dedicated business consultancy schemes for young entrepreneurs. Most of them actually have high take-up rates, and that's due to targeted outreach methods to attract young entrepreneurs. We've also seen a recent trend that many countries are introducing learning platforms or applications dedicated to young people in order to provide direct support to young people in helping them gain entrepreneurship skills. This includes Entre for All, or How Fit Are You for Starting a Business in Austria, or the YEPA platform in Finland. So with that, I will close, and I will just say that we're very much looking forward to hearing about programs that you might be involved in. So please feel free to put them in the chat or share them during the roundtable sessions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Helen. Are there any questions? We can take a couple of questions at this point if there are any. Feel free to raise your hand, or you can just unmute and speak.
And it's not a question, but it's a
Yeah.
general comment. Is it okay?
Go ahead. Yes, please.
Cool. Great presentation, Aaron. I think that what it takes to support an entrepreneur, an adult entrepreneur, it's not much different than a young entrepreneur. The main difference, I guess, is the conditions. So when you're talking about young person, mainly it's just this person has no means to entrepreneur, either because they don't have money or because they are at school and it takes a lot of time. So I guess if you really want to boost young entrepreneurship, you also need to consider the life cycle of this person. An adult as well, like the average of a successful entrepreneur, it's 42. It's not 18, very unfortunately. And I think that this happens because when you're 42, you already have experienced a lot of your work life and you understand the market and you build a certain network, which allows you then having the money, having the network, and having the work experience to have the perfect condition to, start a new business. So how can we replicate that for someone that's very young? Which means, like in Portugal, there is a very successful initiative, which is called Startup Voucher, where the government pays a minimum wage for young people to entrepreneur, as well as they provide a really nice network of mentors, and they provide access to youngs to accelerators, so they can kind of build this network that they don't have it yet in order to succeed. And there is also, when we're talking about supporting entrepreneurs, for me, there is a big problem, which is a lot of public initiatives are quite biased in a sense that sometimes the government give money for universities, accelerators, and incubators to run programs. And those organizations only run the programs for the sake of running the program and getting the public money. So when we develop the policies, we also need to be very careful to make sure that these policies are well designed to really support the entrepreneurs and not to provide money for organizations to run programs. And then when the program finish, the entrepreneur is left alone. So just a few considerations that I think that's, like when you're designing policies for young people, we will be better successful. I don't know if it was clear.
Thanks, Fernando. Clear as always. Very provocative points. I think that we'll probably try to pick these up as we go out through the agenda today. Talking about how do we design for the young people specifically, and does it need to be differentiated from more general support programs, and if so, how? I think that's one of the key questions. So thanks for raising that. I don't see anybody else jumping to make an intervention. So I'll just want to make a short presentation myself, just to let you know about some new tools that are available from the OECD. And so John mentioned in the introduction the recommendation that was issued by our council. And this was issued a couple of years ago. And since that time, we've been working with the various technical committees to put together some tools to help countries implement the recommendation. So John already mentioned this. The recommendation promotes a whole of government approach and tries to strengthen all elements of the lives of young people. So entrepreneurship is, of course, a transversal issue, and it comes out most strongly in this recommendation in the labor market section. But of course, we can see it throughout the entire document. So the toolkit that I wanted to just inform you about was launched in November, and it intends to be a guide for governments to help, address the issues and to follow the advice that was issued in the recommendation. And the thing that's quite nice is that it recognizes diversity among young people. That includes both individual characteristics as well as differences across different contexts, where the person lives, which country, and whether they live in a city or a rural area, and and so on. And so, this is available for you. It comes in two formats. On the screen, I'm showing you the book. This is sort of the classic OECD publication, but you might be more interested in the online version, which is a searchable database. So as of right now, the database has got 72 case studies that illustrate different elements of the recommendation and tries to provide examples and models of what different governments could do. And for the time being, we've got 3 examples of entrepreneurship. And I think we've discussed at least 2 of them in the different YEPA events so far. One is called Young Entrepreneurs Succeed, and it's an initiative that was implemented across 4 countries. Slightly different approaches in each of the countries, adjusting for the needs and the context in the different countries. And then we had the Yes, I Startup, which we had some presentations of already, and also an example from Colombia about how to support young entrepreneurs in rural areas. So these cases were selected from a long list of several hundred, and we went through several rounds of consultations with colleagues inside the Secretariat and also with our technical committees of government representatives. So anyway, I just want to bring this to your attention. We'll share this with all of the other materials from the workshop, so you'll be able to click on the image and go right to it. Unfortunately, that doesn't have a snappy URL, but if you Google OECD Youth Policy Toolkit, you'll be able to find the database very easily. So that's just for your information. Thanks for your attention. Now we're going to move on with the show. And it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Tom Cooney. He's at the University, Technological University in Dublin, Ireland. Of course, we all know him because he's been very active in our YEPA community. And we've invited him to talk about financial literacy because this is one of the big issues in the area of skills and knowledge related to entrepreneurship. It's increasingly coming up in policy discussions, and there's of course growing research around this area. And as I indicated earlier, it came out as one of the top issues indicated in the survey of what people wanted to cover in the workshop today. So that's a very long introduction to say we're very happy to have Tom here. So Tom, over to you.
Thank you, David, and thank you to OECD colleagues for the opportunity to talk about this topic because it's one that I'm actually quite passionate about and feel quite strongly about because we talk about entrepreneurship mindsets and skills, and the conversation around financial literacy doesn't seem to get the attention that I think it deserves. It was really interesting actually listening to Helen's presentation and how Helen was highlighting all of the initiatives that are happening across many of the EU and OECD countries relating to youth entrepreneurship, and all of those are very welcome. But I wondered how many actually include dedicated training around business financial literacy. And the reason I draw attention to this is because in addition to my work as professor, I also have my own consultancy firm where I spend a lot of time with owner managers in small firms, and financial literacy amongst owner managers is a huge issue. And some years back, I did a survey with the Small Firms Association here in Ireland, and we put data to what we already knew, which was that the standard of financial literacy was quite poor. Interestingly, in that study, we asked people about what they thought about their own standard of financial literacy and what they thought of the standard of other people. And you won't be surprised to learn that people thought their own standard of financial literacy was pretty good, but everybody else's was pretty poor. So the problem was elsewhere. And I don't think that surprises you. I do want to differentiate between personal finance and business finance. We are talking very different things, and a lot of what we see from JA Europe, Junior Achievement Europe, for example, do quite a lot of really good work on the topic of financial literacy, but it really is around personal finance rather than business finance. And obviously, entrepreneurs need to distinguish between the two of them if they're to ensure sustainable business management. As I mentioned earlier, it's been my experience, and there is significant research to support this, that the standard of financial literacy amongst owner managers generally is very poor. I keep saying to owner managers that I'm not asking you to be an accountant, okay, or a qualified accountant. I just need you to understand the figures that accounts provide for you, and also to appreciate how you can make better decisions based on your understanding of that information. Again, it's been my experience that owner managers generally do not have, dashboard numbers, for monthly accounts. I'm not talking about full set of accounts. I'm talking about, how much, what were our sales figures for the past month? What were the cost of sales? How much money do we have in the bank? What's our outstanding debt? Just the basic dashboard numbers are not something that are used regularly by owner managers. And as I said earlier, they don't value the information that these financial statements provide. And in reality, what happens is they believe all of this is the responsibility of their accountant. And they hand over that responsibility and they hand over that knowledge. We then go to banks looking for money. And, I would say, I've argued this in the past, that loans are provided to people with little understanding of cash flow and other basic information, financial information. And, I beg the question, who's responsible for this reckless trading? Last June, I spoke at the European Microfinance Network Conference in Bucharest. And, I made this very point. You give out money to owner managers, where they have extraordinarily poor levels of financial literacy, and the business goes bust. Who's responsible? Right. So we need to address this as a bigger issue. But I think, as I make the point here, the standard is even poorer with missing entrepreneurs, and I include youth in that. Because they're likely to have lower levels of education, certainly have lower levels of managerial experience. Okay. And again, look, I've been so passionate about this particular issue. I co-founded a business called dothefinancials.com. There's my promotional plug, which enables people to understand the basics of finance and even to create their own financial projections. And again, as I say, without needing to be a financial accountant or a qualified accountant. Here is data from Eurobarometer, Flash Eurobarometer in 2023. And what you'll see in this data, right, is that three things are immediately noticeable. One is the standard financial literacy differs significantly between male and female. Secondly, you'll notice that it's much poorer amongst younger age group. And thirdly, you will notice that, again, lower levels of education will mean lower levels of financial literacy. So now this is financial literacy generally. It's not relating to business finance literacy specifically. That should be noted. But it gives us an indication of the challenges that we are facing. So again, regarding the topic of today, which is youth entrepreneurship and skill sets, it is clearly highlighting that young people are less financially literate, that lower educated are less financially literate, And there's a divide, a significant divide between male and female. So in terms of addressing these issues, in terms of supporting the development of entrepreneurial skill sets amongst young people, what are we doing to enhance their business financial literacy skills? And when I went looking for examples of good practice, which I'll come to later, it was very difficult to identify examples from across Europe of where financial literacy was being developed as a skill set in a meaningful way. Okay. So having a start your own business program where you talk about financial projections and tell people that you want a balance sheet, you want a profit and loss, and these are the things that need to be in it, okay, is informing them about the requirements for a business plan, the requirements for, monitoring the performance of a business, but it's not actually developing financial literacy skills. Okay. Here we go. So why is financial literacy a challenge for youth entrepreneurship particularly? Well, again, as I made the point, is that lower levels of education means that people may not have covered in schools, and indeed, many schools, do not touch upon personal finance or business finance in their curriculum, and therefore it leaves young entrepreneurs without basic foundational knowledge on business finance. Again, being young, they're less likely to have experience with money management, either in a personal capacity and certainly in a business management capacity. We have abundant evidence highlighting the issue of access to finance. And again, it's understandable if someone of a young age is presenting themselves looking for a loan and have poor levels of financial planning and credit management skills, that they're going to struggle to secure a loan and attract investors. It's also likely that they're going to overlook issues like cash management or cash flow management because of the lack of experience, because they've not been in this position before. And also they may have difficulties in terms of poor pricing strategies and indeed in terms of understanding tax compliance. So all of those challenges mean that you are creating a scenario where young entrepreneurs are less likely to succeed, not because they've got a poor business idea, not because there's not a market for their product, or because they lack the enthusiasm or the entrepreneurial capacity. It's mainly because they lack the skill set around understanding finance and the value that that brings them in terms of sustaining their business. I just thought I'd draw your attention to some studies also that were done in relatively recent times around entrepreneurship education that did include financial literacy. And Ahmed et al. Said that financial literacy leads to increased intention towards entrepreneurship among undergraduate students. And the implication of this study is that financial literacy is vital and should be equipped within future young entrepreneurs. Bilal et al. Said that the results of their study revealed that financial literacy and its two parts, financial attitude and financial knowledge, have a positive impact on entrepreneurial intent on students. And as referenced earlier, the OECD report on missing entrepreneurs from 2023, when we look at the youth section, it made very clear point that the lack of strong positive impacts of financial measures on their own suggests that a more effective approach for creating sustainable businesses amongst young people might be to offer combinations of financial and non-financial support. And that is a recommendation that I would fully support. I think the notion of giving young people financial aid without just educating them around financial literacy, recklessness might be too strong a word, but certainly I would argue it's poor practice. In terms of key priorities for teaching business financial literacy, it's important that we get them to understand the basic financial concepts, and we develop their skill sets in terms of pricing, profitability, and investment decision making. Easy to say we need to ensure accessibility of financial education through schools, online resources, and mentorship. But I suppose the challenge is, and our discussion today should be around, how do we make that happen? How do we ensure that young people have access to effective training around financial literacy? Obviously, interactive and experiential learning are key elements of this. But it's been my experience that the best learning happens when the student is working with somebody. I just want to give you just a quick example on this. I'm currently working with my undergraduate students in an entrepreneurship class, and we're coming close to the end of the module, and they have to submit a business plan. And as part of that process, we also have a Dragon's Den style event at the end where we have 3 venture capitalists, real venture capitalists, come into the classroom, and the students have to pitch their business ideas and their finances to the dragons. But I spend 2-hour workshops working with the students in class on the development of their financial projections. And that is hugely important, because in the past, what happened was that I would talk about what needs to be done. I would introduce the issue of financial projections and then allow them to go off and do it on their own. And surprise, surprise, I discovered that the standard of financial projections was generally really poor. Now we use the online tool, dothefinancials.com, but also I spend time with them. And what that allows to happen is that I can identify in class the challenges, the problems that are arising, and address them for everyone. On Monday's class, when we started out on the first of these, I asked the students how good they thought they were in terms of financial literacy. And again, surprise, surprise, they all thought they were really good. I gave them 10 relatively simple questions around business finance, okay, and some of the terms that they use. And the most anyone got right was 8 out of 10, and the lowest was 5. So they were somewhere between 5 and 8. And I made the point to them that each of them thought they were really good at this, and yet here we are in a situation where that is not the case. Last year, working with one particular group, one of the groups, for year 1 of their revenue, they had turnover of 20 million. And I said, do you really think you're going to make 20 million in year 1? And they said, well, Tom, I put in the price per unit, and I put in the number of units I expected to make, and the system says this is the number. So yeah, right. And you're trying to explain, right, that there's either something wrong with the pricing or something wrong with the number of units that you're projecting to sell in year 1, because I assure you the chances of you making 20 million turnover in year 1 is quite unlikely. But that in classroom activity allowed all of that discussion to take place. It allowed questions like, what does VAT mean? What about variable costs? And the learning that happens through that process was really, really strong. And it became evident when they were pitching to the dragons, because they were now much better at answering the questions around finance that came from the dragons. This is an issue that I've been talking about throughout YEPA, and I just want to highlight it again, is that there is a difference that we need to appreciate between graduates and NEETs, NEETs being not in education, employment, or training, and that the training that we might offer to graduates around financial literacy and the training we might offer to NEETs, I think, would need to be quite different, both in what is required and how we might present it. So it's not a one size fits all approach that would be applicable when we talk about youth entrepreneurs. It's a point I made before, and I just want to stress it again. I tried to find examples of good practice, and so I would please encourage people attending today to share with us any examples that put it into the chat room, please. Any examples that you might be aware of where in youth entrepreneurship there is effective business financial literacy training taking place. And I'm not talking about, a single class on here's what needs to be in a set of financial projections. I'm talking about proper understanding of finance and the value that it brings to you. The two that I kind of identified were the Future Heroes one in Latvia, and that's targeted at young girls between 14 and 17. And it's not so much around business startup, although that's part of it. It's about being entrepreneurial and about what they can do more broadly in life, and it's about achieving potential. But finance is included, financial literacy is very much included in that. And then the UK Young Enterprise is a planned program of study that equips young people with the knowledge, skill, and it includes the notion about how to manage their money. So you may be aware of good practice in your home countries where good financial literacy is part of the Young Entrepreneurs program of learning. And I certainly would like to know of them, and I suspect it would be really useful for David and his team to be aware of those initiatives as well. So look, in closing, financial literacy, I would argue, is crucial for entrepreneurial success, and we need to have a strong conversation about how we're going to build that into the final recommendations from YEPA. As I said, I think tailored approaches for different youth profiles ensure greater impact, and it's not a one size fits all. We need to build significant financial learning into startup programs. I still would argue that giving money without education is a major error. Obviously, public-private sector collaboration is critical to delivering effective programs. And just finally, the company that I co-founded to address financial literacy for SME owner managers and business students is www.todefinancials.com for anyone that's interested in learning more about that particular work. So that's my presentation, and David, I'll hand back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. That was excellent. Really strong argument for the need to place this at the center of all of our training and education programs. We can take some questions and reactions. Don't be shy. You can even share, as Tom requested, some good practices if you know of any in your country. You can tell us about it. You can raise your hand, input into the chat. Just unmute yourself. We're a pretty small group. Please feel free. Now is the time. You can challenge Tom if you want as well, if you disagree.
I can add something.
Please go ahead. Is that Fernando?
Yes, I was just
All right.
waiting to see other people who also like to add. I don't want to be the only one. Tom, great talk. I agree with you. if I had to contribute with my 2 cents, it's I myself, I built the Portuguese Startup Association because I tried to build two business and I failed. And one of my failures was a big fail. Like I took between doing the business models, the financial models, and trying to build the whole business. I was trying to build a marketplace when I was at university, and then I built a network of 50 partners in one side, and in the other side, another network of 70 business that to have the marketplace implemented. It took me a whole year to launch it, and I built it. I had everything, and when I launched, day one, zero sales. Day 1 week, zero sales. 1 year, zero sales. Not 1 year because I didn't survive an extra year. So my criticism here is sometimes we try to equip the entrepreneurs with every single knowledge that they have it. But sometimes if someone had told me like, look, instead of building the whole thing, why don't you try to have one partner and one business and see if you can make this to work? And then it would have taken me 2 to 3 weeks to close one partner and one business, and probably you had failed much earlier in the process than taking a whole year. Like I learned a bunch of things. I learned all the financial models. I learned, how to do partnerships and so on. But to make the business successful, really, I couldn't. So like I would say that the sweet spot maybe it's being practical at the same time as we deliver all this knowledge. So we ensure that the entrepreneurs have actually, a high potential of being successful.
Thanks very much, Fernando. Great to hear the personal story and to get some additional insights from your experience. Any reaction, Tom?
Yeah, I think my immediate reaction is I'm a fan of the lean startup model. That if you're going to fail, fail fast and fail cheap. I think in Fernando's experience, just getting on with it, doing it, trying it, and then learning from it, I think. But also, I think it speaks about the culture of failure, that it's, we learn from failure. We learn, and that the stigma of failure, needs to be put aside. Young people need to start up and learn, and if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We move on. Again, it's one of the things I do like about the American kind of culture with regard to entrepreneurial activity, is that startup and failure is seen as an apprenticeship, and you learn from it and move on. And I think if we're looking at young entrepreneurs, I think we need to encourage failure, or certainly encourage a culture where failure is acceptable, and question, okay, why did you fail? What did you learn from it? What would you do differently the next time? And then move on from that. But yeah, I think Fernando's story is valuable in terms of what we can learn from it.
Okay, we've got Marian who has his hand up as well. Marian?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I like the Fernando story that because it highlighted the importance of testing and validation. So this is like a textbook story from which we hear or see in different methodologies that explain how testing and validation is important. And I think that it's important to connect the two contributions, because what Tom said was also that if the financial literacy or the financial training is done just in the classroom with spreadsheets, but without connection to the business rationale, so without the connection of how the numbers are actually forecasted or developed, or what's the logic behind the numbers, then it's not going to work. So it's a piece of a puzzle in the whole thing. So in my opinion and from my experience, it has to be connected with the business perspective, the financial perspective, the business rationale, tested and validated, transformed to the numbers. And of course, there has to be the understanding of the numbers, understanding of the financial logic. So it's like it's one thing, different parts of the same thing, and they have to work together well.
Thank you, Marian. Any other questions, interventions, contributions? Seems like maybe we need a quick break to stretch, get a coffee. So we're going to slightly adjust the agenda today. We're going to take a break now, and we'll get the presentation and discussion of EntreComp after the break. So Helen will tell us what's going to happen because we've got this networking session, which we've never done before. So she's going to explain the idea and how it's going to work. Helen?
Yes, so we are excited to introduce this new session for networking. Over the last few workshops, we've received a lot of feedback that you guys would like more opportunity to exchange with each other, to talk, to have a moment, just like we would be doing in person over a cup of coffee per se. So we're going to go to the break, stretch our legs, maybe get a cup of coffee. We'll come back and you'll be put into small groups of 2 to 3 people. And it's meant to be an informal exchange. Take the opportunity in these new country groups to introduce yourself. You might not have seen these people since our launch event almost 2 years ago. So the intention is just to create a conversational setting and allow you to exchange. And then we'll go back to our case studies and our roundtable discussions. So we will go ahead to the break and we'll be back by 11:20 for networking.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. So thank you for inviting me. So as I said a few minutes earlier, I'm really passionate about this subject, about supporting the promotion of entrepreneurial mindset in Europe. And I am in the unit who's dealing with SME policies. So we look at entrepreneurship from this angle of helping businesses. When I say small businesses in Europe, you know it's most of them. So from that angle, we like to promote this entrepreneurial mindset for everybody in Europe. So I hope I'll convince you in the next few minutes that we promote entrepreneurship as a competence for all the citizens, not only for those who build companies. Yes, those who build companies to become entrepreneurs, we think they benefit from that, but it's more than that. Everybody can have a more fulfilled life if they have this, what we call EntreComp, the entrepreneurship competencies, the mindset. So I'm going to show you a little bit what we do here and hope to convince you. Okay, so I want to give you this definition. Julien, I hope you agree with me. So this is the definition that we use a little bit when we talk about entrepreneurship. It's in the SME relief package. That's kind of our main policy document. And it was a little bit enforced by the Draghi report. So when we say entrepreneurship policy, we look at all the life cycle of a company. So from the idea, from creation to when you exit, so it's all cycle. And of course, we're very keen on this implementation of the European Entrepreneurship Competence Framework. If you don't know it, I invite you to Google it. It comes up. You can see it. I will show you in a moment. And one specific component that I deal with, and I have to put it here, is reaching the entrepreneurial potential of those groups that have not achieved it. And our colleagues from the OECD here are supporting us with the missing entrepreneurs. In this case is women. So I have to talk to you a little bit of women and about women in entrepreneurship today. So I'll show you now the EntreComp. So it looks like a nice flower. I really encourage you to look it up because here I can show you 15 competencies. So the big competence is actually 15 competencies, and they're grouped in these 3 areas. Why are they grouped like that? Because if I have an idea, so it's great to have an idea, but it's not enough. I need to seize the opportunity. So idea and opportunity to do something about it. So we have the five here. You have spotting opportunities, creativity, very important and sometimes forgotten, vision. So I have to have a way to go forward. I have to see a little bit, a plan. How will I go in the future? Valuing ideas, so knowing that ideas are valuable, and ethical and sustainable thinking. And here we link a little bit with the other competencies, our green competencies. Then the second stage is resources. So why? In order to do any project, even if it is a company or just a project, I don't know, in school or in a hospital or whatever it is, I need to mobilize resources. I need to be able to spot these resources and to mobilize them. And probably among my favorite resources are the internal one, because I'm also an internal coach at the commission, so I work with people to find their own resources. The internal ones here you see are motivation and perseverance, self-awareness and self-efficacy. So to know something about my strength. What can I do for this idea that I have for this project? What is it that I have that I can mobilize and offer? And then, of course, we have financial and economic literacy, mobilizing other and mobilizing resources more in general. So I have to see, are there others that can help me? Are there projects? Are there, like me and Julien in another DG, there's somebody there that could help me maybe, we mobilize, I call some colleagues, say, hey, let's do this together. This is an important part in any project, not only in a business world. And then we have what we call into action. So it's nice to have the idea, it's nice to have mobilized resources, but to put them into action, to do something with it is very important. And I often go work with teenagers. So I promote entrepreneurship in schools. And when I tell them, they say, oh, we have a great idea and we have the colleagues, but they don't see this step. Oh, I need a plan. I need to have some actions. I need to create something. So they skip that. And it's very important because without this, you won't have a project. So that's why we put here learning through experience, experiential learning. I hope I don't have to convince you how important experiential learning is today. And of course, here we have learning from mistakes, approach to risk taking. You have there coping with ambiguity, uncertainty, and risk. And this is very important because as humans, we don't like risk. We want everything to be certain, everything has to be planned. I give you my example of this morning. I want everything to be in my calendar. If it's not in my calendar, oh my God, it's uncertain. What do I do about it? And we need to have the ability to cope with this because guess what? Life is uncertain. We can see in our European context and beyond, there are a lot of uncertainties. If I don't have the ability to cope with it, I won't be able to complete my project. Taking the initiative here, is the strand of leadership. I guess they didn't want to put leadership here, but it's that, I need to lead as an example. And I'm sure you hear also often people say, oh, what shall we do? When we say, what shall we do me? What can I do? Or the others? And I think people in general are very good at telling others what to do, but they forget to commit themselves to say, I will do this. And this is what taking the initiative is, finding this leadership. And of course, planning and management and working with others. This planning, us in the commission, I think we're very good about management planning. We're maybe not so good about, for instance, working with others, but this planning is important in any project. If I plan a school trip, it's still important to have this planning. So these competencies, we put them here. They were published in 2016. And basically our job at the commission is to offer these competencies, to offer them in various places, like in training institutes, in schools, in unemployment offices. And Julien can say more about with the unemployment world, with the vet organization. So our job is to promote this, to equip people with this, and to, in a sense, promote the uptake of Entrecomp in Europe. We do not have, I think, colleagues here from DGAG, but if they were here, I think they could tell us that we still have a long way to go. There are some countries, maybe some formal education places that have made a little bit of progress, but there's still a lot um, to do to get to this entrepreneurial mindset, where this is more a little bit like a second nature, where we do this in schools and everywhere in universities. So we're not there yet, and that's why we do projects. So I'm going to show you now the type of projects that we have. So here on this slide, I put a result of one of the projects because I think it's an important tool and I like you to look at it. So if you'll get the slides afterwards, there is a link there. It's called the Being Entrepreneurial Guide. So in this guide, we put exactly this, how you can use Entrecomp in whatever your roles are, in world of work, for the SMEs, for training, body. So in all these places, how can you use it? And it has a lot of resources, including the one resource that we offer. And I would like you to promote this because this is our newest platform where we put a lot of learning material. So we have micro learning, we have courses, we have webinars, we have cafes, and it's a lot of learning material, and we like people to use it. And if any of you has created a platform, you know that you need people to come to this platform. So I will invite you to promote a little bit this platform, to invite people to come to it. We have here 4 competencies. So the Entrecomp, the entrepreneurship, is the one in green, but we have linked it to sustainability, so to Green Comp, to DIGCOMP, which is the digital competencies, and to financial competencies, to financial literacy. Why have we done it? Well, for us here, it's easy to compartmentalize it at the European Commission. We're very good at saying, you do that, you do that. But for users there, for people who want to do something, want to be entrepreneurial, they don't know that this is entrepreneurship competence. Oh, and the digital, working with the computer, oh, that's a digital. So that's why we decided to group all the resources together so that they're useful. And I can say, for instance, in my work with women, financial literacy is very important. Every time when I ask them, what would you like us, what resources would you like, they say financial literacy because it's not taught in schools. It's difficult to get to it. You kind of need to be a little bit self-taught to know how to, manage credit, how to get a loan from a bank, and all this kind of things. So this is the platform. So this is another project that we have. And now I want to talk to you a little bit about missing entrepreneurs. And this is a quote from our friends here from the OECD about women. So those women that we do not have in entrepreneurship that we could have there. And why don't we have them there? Because women still face barriers to entrepreneurship. And I summarize them here. I'm often asked, what are these barriers? We do have a project now, a new project that actually is going to look at these barriers to women entrepreneurship, to what has been done. And it's a little bit what you guys put in the missing entrepreneurship report, but I would like to have it more by country, if possible by region. So we're going to try and do that, and also collect data on women entrepreneurship. So we had a study in 2014 where we tried to collect data. Now we try to do maybe hopefully a better study to see in what sectors are these women, what is their age, what kind of companies are they running, are they solo entrepreneurs, do they have employees? So a little bit to see if we can compare. So we're going to try and see what we can do. And I'm very curious to see what policies work or what has been tried and works, because you guys also put it in your report that yes, we haven't been so good at evaluating. So there are some measures, fragmented measures, but when we evaluate them, do they work? Do they produce more women entrepreneurs? So I put this slide here to refer to this ongoing project that we have. Probably we'll have the data next year. So 2026 we'll have a big event to show this data. And last but not least, I want to show you one project. I have to say it's my favorite. And this is a project where we have decided to support not only women in entrepreneurship, but also girls. So since I've been working on this for I don't know how many years now, I realized that we really have to start early with this change of the entrepreneurial mindset. So we really have to start kindergarten, primary school. So I have included girls. So now I work in girls and women in what we call STEAM. You have here the words of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, and we added entrepreneurship. And it's also a pun of words from self-esteem, because when you work with girls and women, you have to work on this confidence, this bringing out. They might have the same competencies as men, but they're not confident in using them. So there is this component there. So we basically do this STEAM Fest all over Europe. We're in the 4th year now. We actually have now reached 4,500 girls and women so far, and we're planning to continue. So I'm basically writing right now the continuation of this project, and planning to continue with this to reach more girls and women and find a way basically to measure the impact, to see the fact that they've been in the STEAM project. Does it increase their likelihood to study and take up careers in entrepreneurship, science, and technology? So that's what I had to tell you today. So I'm happy to answer questions. Or I don't know how you're planning this format, but that's what I don't know. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Dana, for that great presentation. We do have a few minutes for questions or comments if there's anyone that would like to raise their hand or speak now. We're a small group, so feel free to unmute yourself. You can also add a question or comment in the chat. We'll give.
I have a provocation.
Okay.
It's okay if I share my screen because I want to show some data. I think that I will need the rights to do so.
1 second. You should have the permission now.
Yay. So what you see on the screen is, so I'm gonna talk about startups because it's more related to my area, but take this as entrepreneurship as a whole. So what you see on the screen is the life cycle of the startup. So where it's written 90%, it's because 9 out of 10 startup founders will fail, okay? And throughout the journey, they will face different challenges. So where is the valley of the death? It's where 9 out of 10 startups will fail. They have different challenges, like they don't find a co-founder, they don't know what's the business model Canva, they spend all their money building the product instead of marketing. And as you evolve through the stages, that's seed, Series A, Series B, Series C's, you have different challenges. So let's say that you're a young entrepreneur that you're trying to raise your Series A. Your challenges will be then, it's not very beginners knowledge. Your challenges will be more like, how do I build a global business, right? How do I scale my team that today it's 5 young people to a serious company of 30 people? And what you're seeing on the screen now, it's data from Startup Genome, compiling GeoRoom, Crunchbase, and PitchBook, which are the largest startup databases. And we can see that the main issue, it's not people are not starting. So you can see that here in Portugal, 226 startups actually manage to raise the first amount of money. But the main issue is in the later stages. I think that people are not having the right knowledge in able to grow the startups accordingly. So we can see that out of 226 startups who managed to raise seed money, only one startup got to the Series C stage, which is rising 50 million. So I guess when we design public policies, there's a lot of things, to create companies. But for those companies that are really successful, you really manage to have some young people that done a great job. I feel that they are missing support in a sense that what's the next step? You know, like if I already managed to build a company somehow, how I can therefore grow this company internationally. So my provocation is how we can shift the mindset to say like, look, giving knowledge for the ones that don't know yet, so they have the first right to entrepreneur is great. But how can we map those young people who are really managed to give the first step and ensure that they have the different set of knowledges so they can take those companies that they build to become a global business? And I guess that's where it we could have the most economical impact, actually not forgetting the ones that are really succeeding and making sure that we develop the right policy so they have the further knowledge that they needed. I don't know if I managed to explain my point.
Can I answer or
Yes.
attempt to answer? Okay.
Yes, please. No,
Right.
this is a discussion. Please. Very
So
sorry.
look,
I'm very passionate about it.
so it's not my, I have to say, it's not my expertise in the commission. Dealing with what we call scale ups, it's in a different part of the commission, different colleagues, so I cannot speak for that expertise. But I hope that Julien is going to support me this, because look, what we presented you, competence means knowledge, attitude, and skills, and you refer to knowledge.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to challenge you with, it's not only the knowledge. So suppose we find the knowledge. I don't know, I go to a course in San Francisco, in Silicon Valley, I get the knowledge, but the attitude towards failure. You know, we don't have here in Europe, oh, we fail once, oh my God, we go on unemployment. I don't know. The attitude towards failure, we have not done, and in my view, we have not done enough in schools to prepare these kids for failing. Having kids who have only A's or only 10 or top marks, it's not a good idea. I keep telling, I work with parents as well. I keep telling them, it's not a good idea to tell your kid to have the top marks, because you'll not learn what happens when I fail. When that investor tells me, not good, you're too risky or stuff, or whatever it is. So this attitude towards, what do I know? And cultivating, and Antrecomp has this competencies, if you want, and the skills. And I've seen people going high up now. Okay, women have a different attitude towards growth, and that's a different matter. So, but let's say in general, and you hear a lot of, I was at Slush a few months ago, and there everybody said, oh, we still have to go to America. If you want to grow, you still have to go to the US first. It's not possible in Europe and stuff. And then some people said that, it's the mindset actually, and this is difficult to change the mindset. We said, okay, I am that. It's not only the knowledge. What can I do? Maybe I can invent a new thing at the moment. So it's this openness, including openness to failing.
Yes, I agree. It's
And,
just
and working with others, also being more open. As like I've seen startups, I've seen a little bit more in my roles that people are afraid to give equity, to work with others. They're really because they haven't been taught to be open, to attempt, to try. What if I lose? I try again. That's why I call serial entrepreneurs, because guess what, if I failed one, this means I learned a lot from that. We don't see that a lot in Europe. I haven't met a lot of people who call themselves serial entrepreneurs. There are a few. We have to give it a right. And I think my colleagues at the Commission, they're trying to, with InvestEU, they're trying to boost a little bit the VC gap that we have in Europe. So there are some attempts. Yes, I have to say it's not enough, but I still think that it's a mindset change that's needed, and that's what we try to do with the Entrecomp. So in a sense, what you call knowledge is, if I would know about Entrecomp and how to apply it, and I know how to reflect on it, because people nowadays do not reflect. They just go, and the next, if I reflect a little bit, maybe I'll be in the next step. So I don't know if I answered you, but that's my answer for the moment.
yes, no, I agree with you. It's just an additional provocation, which is I work quite close to a few universities in Portugal supporting founders. And quite often I get, if the founder, let's say I am, 20 and I managed to build a successful business.
Yeah.
If I am a little bit more successful than the average in the university, there is no program for them. Like they feel that all the accelerators and incubators at the university are too early stage for them. And the university doesn't offer any additional program for those who are a little bit more successful, they will require a different sets of competencies, and skills.
Yeah.
Therefore, they rather prefer not joining to the programs that are available for them because they feel that these programs are too early stage. And, the end game of supporting entrepreneurs is actually making sure that they build global business. And for the ones that being really successful, they don't find the service at universities or schools.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, unfortunately, universities are not well equipped. They don't understand this idea of being entrepreneurship. I've seen, okay, there are some universities who have entrepreneurship centers, but that's an isolated cell. They do not understand. And by the way, it's true in the US too. I talked to somebody in Princeton recently, and they tried to create these spin-offs, and they were these very great inventions, and they put a business around it, and they had no clue how to run the business, for instance. So it's not only our but university in general, academia does not have a good understanding of what it means to be an entrepreneurial and the business world. So there's still this gap, yes, we have business schools and entrepreneurship center, but in general, we have, a lot of intellectual property in this university, in science, in technology, and those are amazing businesses in the making. Yet, so for universities now, I know we're trying to build this. We have this European education area. So my colleagues from DGAC could tell more about this. So we're trying, and we've been trying for a while now to push a little bit universities, and we try to implement Entrecomp in the universities. We show them, look, it's for a purpose which is bigger than your little niche in whatever you teach. But we're not there yet. So I hear you. Yes, universities, we still have a way to go. But I'm thinking, for instance, in the future to focus a little bit more on universities. And I tell you why. It's because I see a lot of potential there. So for instance, in the projects for women that I do, I see the highest impact in university or immediately after universities because they haven't made up their mind. They haven't locked on their career. So they're still changing careers. They're still trying to see how they contribute in life. And there is more impact there. So yeah, maybe there's more work for us to do focusing on universities.
Thank you so much. This is great discussion, and we can pick up these topics later in the roundtables as well. But I think we need to move on to the next presentation. So thank you again, Dana. We really appreciate you being here. So up next, we have a case study from Romania by Anca, who's going to talk about boosting digital and green skills among young people. So Anca, there we go. Wonderful. Over to you. We can't hear you, Anca.
Okay.
Oh, now we can. Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm honored to be here today and to have the opportunity to share insight about boosting digital and green skills with such a distinguished audience. I would like to express my gratitude to OECD and European Commission YEPA coordinators for inviting me to contribute to this workshop. As a professor of economics at the University of Oradea, Romania, and vice rector for entrepreneurship and local coordinator for EU Green Alliance, I have provided me with a deep understanding of students' entrepreneurial education and the students' entrepreneurship skills. Today, I will present two case studies based on project I am currently coordinating at the University of Oradea. Just a second to... I think it's better now. Okay. First, focus on boosting green skills is related to is a case study, entrepreneur's journey in sustainability, related with EU Green Alliance project, a project funded by European Commission through Erasmus Plus program. And second, development of entrepreneurial skills in the digital sector is based on Digital UO project, a project financed by National Recovery and Resilience Plan in Romania, a huge grant for digital transformation of University of Oradea.
Olga, I'm so sorry to interrupt. The slides have not changed. I don't know if you wanted to move.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now?
It's still not full screen. It's still on the first slide.
Oh, okay.
Now we see the EU green slide.
Okay. Now it's okay?
Yes, the slide has moved. I just wanted to let you know. So sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So first, about EU Green Alliance, it's an alliance of 9 universities, middle-sized universities from peripheral regions across Europe. University of Oradea is a partner. University of Extremadura from Spain is coordinator, is a leader. You can see 24 campuses, over 150,000 students, 18 staff, over 5 million inhabitants, and associated partners. You can see the slide now with associated partners. Yeah.
No, I'm afraid we don't see the slideshow. We see the PowerPoint window. So maybe you have a second screen where the slideshow is on.
I will try to share again. Now?
Yes, now we see the associated partners.
Okay, so you can see we have a great network of local, regional governance, public administration, but also business environment. EU Green is specialized in sustainability. We choose this specialization based on scientific publication and project. And as you can see here, there are 5 of the 17 sustainable development goals that represent the scientific and research development project specialization of our alliance. Based on this specialization, there are 6 EU Green Excellence clusters that represent the main pillars of the entire alliance and project related with that 5 sustainable development goals. So alliance is related with education, research, networking, knowledge transfer, and the excellence clusters are important for each of these fields. There are, of course, several activities in Alliance. The importance for our discussion is work package 4, innovation entrepreneurship for sustainability. Inside this work package, our network of 9 universities under the coordination of University of Évora, we design an entrepreneurial journey in sustainability. This entrepreneurial journey has several components, starting with an inspiration days, online meetings for the academic community to present their talents and get to know EU Green work package for a network, but also inviting key specialists and successful entrepreneurs in the field with a focus on role models. Inspiration days are open for everyone. The next step is innovation days, open for those who do not have an idea or a theme, dedicated 2 days to found an idea on specific challenges related with research clusters in sustainability, and to create a team, to found a team to developing a business plan in future, a solution and a business plan in the future. Next phase, online workshops in sustainable entrepreneurship, focused on especially on market access, IP, intellectual protection, business development, financing. Online workshops are compulsory for those who registered with a robust idea, but compulsory under the scope of the research cluster and under the umbrella of sustainability. We continue with a mentoring program for teams that attend all online workshops. Mentoring program is supported by a network of international mentors for 9 universities and also entrepreneurs from associated partners recommended by each university. They provided mentoring for business plans. And the final is Sustainable Entrepreneurship Festival that includes boot camp meetings with innovation entities and the public pitch event and of course awards and declaration and presenting the winners of the year. Okay. So it is blocked again. I don't know. I will share again. Sorry. Sorry for that.
Would you like me to share your slides for you?
Yes, thank you, Helen. I want to be very short.
Okay. Is this a slide?
Yeah, is the next slide. The duration of each activity, 1 day for inspiration days. We prefer to do this online. 2 days for in-person face-to-face meeting innovation days, 1 month for online workshops, 3 months for mentoring program, and 3 days for Sustainable Entrepreneurship Festival. Next, please. Okay, and after the scheme is fresh, we applied the scheme in last year for first time in all alliance and also in University of Oradea. The cluster related with this entrepreneurial journey are agriculture, food and environmental sustainability and challenges in ecosystem diversity and function. All universities must to respect this research cluster in organization their entrepreneurial journey. In Oradea, we had in February online inspiration days with 62 participants out of 600 per total in all alliance. We invited students, PhD students, researchers, teaching staff, PhD supervisor, especially from agronomy, biology, business administration, economics, finance, so related with research cluster. We had an invited specialist with a presentation about how to obtain finance, how to start up in rural area in Romania and how to obtain financing for a business, a startup in rural area. And we invited 3 entrepreneurs, 3 successful entrepreneurs related with the research cluster, Bioflora, Dextra Wines, and the Dripper Cafeteria. The Dripper is a young entrepreneur, and the Bioflora and Dextra Wines are researcher entrepreneurs and researchers in the same way, and they represent very good role models for our students and PhD students. Innovation days in April. We had 50 participants out of 120 in total at the level of Alliance. 2 days for development of the solution and the group work on challenges predefined before the innovation days on 3 challenges for each cluster. International mentoring, 25 international mentors were invited by partners and included in this year entrepreneurial journey. They provide online mentoring on new business idea related with research cluster. They are researchers from this field or with very good scientific results in the field, or entrepreneurs with businesses in these specific fields. We continue with online training with 6 different modules on sustainable entrepreneurship that were created as MOOCs on Moodle platform. We had in Oradea 4 ideas at the beginning and 4 groups out of 41 at the level of Alliance, and 8 students. All of them have completed all the program that contain content, video, quizzes, and 3 scientific articles about nanotechnology and intellectual property rights, patents, and food markets. The participants had to successfully complete the online workshop in order to participate in the Entrepreneurship Festival. So in November, it's a mistake here. In November, we had Sustainable Entrepreneurship Festival in Evora and 8 students that participated there at boot camps, storytelling applied to business, simulation of investment rounds with investors from different companies, and they had a public presentation of their ideas. At the end, we had 2 ideas, one for each cluster, and the challenge now is to integrate support services to help this idea to transform in spin-offs at the level of university. Next year, we will choose another 2 clusters and we will repeat, and we hope to improve this entrepreneurial journey and so on. We hope to polish this scheme that, as I said before, is very fresh at this moment. Second is related with boosting digital skills. Is a project and development of entrepreneurial skills in the digital sector is a component of the training for students inside this project. So the project, next please. The project is related with the digital transformation of the University of Oradea and has 3 components. Digital equipment for educational and research purposes, and we are projecting 46 structure centers of research didactic and research laboratories and virtual library that will be in the process of acquisition and endowment with digital infrastructure for the development of digital skills of students and researchers, including assistive digital technology for students with special education requirements. The second a component is updating study programs and enhancing educational content tailored to the digital profession of the future. We have here 20 study programs that are in the process of updating by introducing new courses, new discipline, and new topics inside existing courses and discipline in cybersecurity, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, applied informatics, and so on, Internet of Things, online marketing, and so on. And the third component, improving the digital skills of students and academic staff. We have here two components, digital skills and advanced digital skills. Looking at advanced digital skills, we have trainings for 140 students and 20 teaching staff for 7 study programs related with IT, focused with curriculum focused on IT, computer information technology, management in information technology, robotics, automation, and applying information, and so on. Now looking at training for students, we have a mass component here, training for the use of digital resources aligned with Digicom for all students of university, using Moodle platform of university and tutorials. We have IC3 digital literacy certification, and artificial intelligence, cloud computing databases for students from IT-focused study programs, and development of entrepreneurial skills in the digital sector. I must say about this scheme that is designed for 20 students from IT-focused study programs that previously are certificate in artificial intelligence, cloud computing, or databases. So it's, in a way, a very narrow and competitive training. So next slide, please, about this scheme. Containing entrepreneurial training for students from study programs with advanced curriculum in IT who want to start a business in the digital sector, and also free advisory services for Startup Nation competition at the end of training program. The program, the duration is 3 months, with 40 hours, including 60-hour practice on business plan development. The course is accredited by the National Authority for Qualification. Applicants must have obtained their advanced digital skill certification and submit an application letter that explains their startup in the digital sector intention. Elected participants must sign a contract that commits them to attending all of the training session and participating in the certification exam at the end of the training. The training program is designed by an experienced private company and tailored on the need of youths, especially students, and the digital sector. The course will conclude with an exam with a theoretical part as a multiple choice test, and the practical part, presentation of the business plan in the digital sector in front of external evaluators. Participants who pass the exam will, with external evaluators, benefit from free advisory services for adapting their business plan to the requirements of the Startup Nation program. So they are benefited from these advisory services. Next, please. A short description of the content of this training program, with important focus on digital entrepreneurship and digital sector. Every module must to be related with digital sector, with examples, study cases about the digital sector, in order to help students to develop their business plan in the digital sector and related with local needs, with regional smart specialization sectors. And something about impact, I must say that this scheme is also very fresh. We finished the first series of students, and we will see if it's needed to replicate in December 2024, so last year. Training has been delivered to 22 beneficiaries. We had 20 places, but we selected 22 because we had a lot of applications. Has resulted in the creation of 22 new business plans in the digital sector. All participants passed the exam in December, obtained the certification of entrepreneurial scheme, and 8 of them are currently benefiting from advisory services for Startup Nation competition. We consider very important for this scheme success training content tailored to the needs of youth and the digital sector, and especially these free advisory services at the end of training that are important for students to obtain financing for their startup idea. Okay, this was my presentation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Helen, for helping me, and I'm ready for questions.
Thank you so much. I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and do the next case study presentation, and then we'll answer the questions all together for both Anka and Ewald. So I will now pass the floor to Ewald for his presentation. Wonderful.
Hello, can you see my screen?
We can see your screen and we can hear you now, yes.
Fantastic. Hey. Hello, everyone. Thanks again, David and Helen, for the invitation. Was asked to talk about mentoring in general a little bit, but also with a specific focus on digital tools. Now, after the great presentations already and discussions, I think there were some great points which I think also helped me to even better understand why I was also asked to talk about mentoring. And I think mentoring actually might be one important solution to many things we discussed already today. I think Fernando also made great points. I think what is really different, when we compare young entrepreneurs to older entrepreneurs, for instance, how we can help young entrepreneurs really to maybe also have social networks or certain forms of capital that older entrepreneurs already have. And I think that's where mentoring comes in already, or coaching. The same is also, I think, Dana entrepreneurial competence framework, I think, was a brilliant overview where I think, again, mentoring might be one of the most important ways to also address certain gaps in the competences and skills, such as Tom mentioned, the financial literacy, which I think is one of the key points, and I think I agree with Tom. Also nice in the last presentation, Radeska mentioned also the role of digitalization, digital tools, which is also a little bit what I will talk about. And I also want to mention we had great discussions also in the informal workout groups. I think the innovation is a good one. I like the idea. I think we need more of those, perhaps. We talked a lot about also inclusive entrepreneurship in general, how we can foster inclusion in general, where young entrepreneurs obviously are one group. I better get started, right? So I was asked to do this in 10 minutes. So I think in general, what is mentoring? What is entrepreneurship mentoring? I think we could probably talk an hour about this already, because obviously sometimes it's used also, for instance, coaching, training is often also used as the notion of mentoring. But in general, just to keep it a bit of simpler, how we understand entrepreneurship mentoring. And this mainly relates to also some research that we did in the past for the OECD and the European Commission and European Union around mentoring. Is in general, it's professional support and advice to enhance the professional, but also personal growth of entrepreneurs. It often focuses on very specific challenges or issues. That's maybe often where coaching comes in, but in general, mentoring also focuses on the general overdevelopment of the entrepreneur and their businesses. Typically also involves experienced entrepreneurs as mentors. I think that's also usually the ideal case, ranging from several weeks to 1 to 2 years. So there is a large variety in terms of how long the support or the mentoring support is provided by certain programs, certain services. Types of supports, I think based on our research in the last 2 years, we more or less divided a little bit between 4 types. It's the business-related support, then also the psychological support, career-related support, and also role model function in general through interactions with mentors. And I think that's something that is usually also used as some general overview of understanding the variety of support provided. In terms of impact and the usefulness of mentoring, we also contributed a chapter to the Missing Entrepreneurs report last year, or a year and a half ago. And I think we realized the difficulty in finding really programs that offer proper assessments and evaluations of the effectiveness of mentoring support, for instance, and support programs in general. So we still sometimes lack evidence of actual impact of entrepreneurship mentoring and in general of entrepreneurship programs, often because of the lack of certain, for instance, our experimental designs. It's often based on satisfaction surveys, which often don't really indicate the actual benefits and effects of that. That said, there is enough research to give a bit of a general picture around the impact and the benefits. And here we talk, for instance, also about, okay, mentors, mentoring. Support is usually helps also to enhance the ability to identify entrepreneurial opportunities, but also act upon those opportunities, as we heard already before. It usually also helps really strengthening certain skills and competences, also like networking skills. There is also some evidence, some studies show that it usually also leads to higher business survival rates. One argument is that it helps a little bit kind of in terms of decision making and a bit of strategizing at certain stages. And I think also Fernando made a brilliant point about how we better understand how founders operate their business, but also grow with their businesses and what we can do here. And that's, I think, one of the things here is that the decision making, not only the openness to failure, but also improving the decision making to help them also grow with the businesses, or at least survive with the businesses after a year or two. Overall, obviously, the well-being and health aspect is always probably one of the most important ones, right? If you want to be a successful entrepreneur for a longer period of time. And we know usually also mentoring is quite crucial sometimes to help entrepreneurs to have a good work-life balance in general, to find a good balance between staying highly engaged in your entrepreneurial activities, but at the same time, don't compromise your health and your well-being. We also heard from Dana the important points of increasing confidence, right? That's also one of the key aspects there, I think, where mentoring comes in. And overall, greater social and psychological benefits, like even emotional support, and often also friendships that also develop through mentoring, but also increasingly the level of resilience also among entrepreneurs where mentors play an important role. But again, I want to say these are some general aspects. I still also want to say it's very important still that identifying unique needs and kind of treating entrepreneurs case by case is really crucial to really provide the best possible support, especially also when we talk about underrepresented groups, disadvantaged groups like vulnerable entrepreneurs, as we already heard today a little bit more. So I think mentoring, and that's the strange actually of mentoring, is that it can be very needs-based, and it should be. I think when it comes then to the issues, and that's what we'll talk about a little bit, is how to have a good matchmaking, between the mentees and the mentors. I think that's the key, right? How to address certain needs of entrepreneurs and new founders, how to help them in the best possible way. There needs to be a good match between the mentor and the mentee. So that's what digital tools can come in. And I think we are aware of some tools that make that process more efficient and better, and to support, for instance, the matchmaking process, which is one of the aspects where digital tools come in. Basically, it's about creating databases, that have all the information in place of founders, of entrepreneurs, but at the same time also of the other side, of the mentor side, to really understand who would make a good pair, a good couple when we talk about mentoring. And I also would like to mention here already the point, we also talked about rematching, right? It's also important to see when the match is not there, but that you also react quickly enough and to find a new mentor. We can also maybe talk about that more. In general, also digital tools help foster interaction, so interacting. So it's often a very useful channel for mentor-mentee interactions. We can talk from very simple Zoom, Teams conversations and calls to maybe other platforms that have even more efficient ways of communicating between the mentor and the mentee. Digital tools are heavily also used more and more for monitoring to really understand better the progress and the quality of the mentoring in place. I will give some examples later. In general, digital tools, obviously, it's about information sharing and also networking. So some platforms are really useful also for having these peer interactions, having also maybe an exchange with other mentors, not only with your own main mentor, but so that you're embedded in a larger community also virtually. So these are, I would say, the matchmaking, interacting, monitoring, sharing, networking are key features where digital tools come in to support those processes and to support the mentoring. Based on the OECD report we did specifically for Hungary actually 2 years ago, but as part of this research, actually, we tried to collect best practice examples. We tried to better understand what's happening in Europe. I just give a few snapshot examples. I just want to start with a simple example because, and that might be also what we need to discuss is how much digitalization, how much digital tools we want in this process, and how much is actually useful. But one example we have in Finland, it's Business Finland. They have a business mentors program, which I think is a nice example for a very basic use of digital tools. It usually focuses on early stage small business owners. It's quite flexible in terms of how long the mentoring support is provided. But here, the basic idea is, okay, they have an online application. They have some platform where they do some initial matchmaking, but it's not as coordinated as maybe other programs have. And then they more or less have optional virtual mentor-mentee meetings. But overall, this program became quite well known in Finland as a whole because it really tries to foster localized in-person mentoring and monitoring through strong partnerships with local entrepreneurs, for instance, local agencies. And also in the discussion groups, we also talked about how we make sure that we reach also rural regions and not only cities where younger entrepreneurs maybe are more represented. So, and that's where digital tools come also in, right? It's reduced costs. It's easy to access, to have a few Zoom meetings, but at the same time, it may also lack this very personalist, localized approach that also small business owners in certain rural regions also need. So I found this quite as a nice example as a starter. An example for a more advanced use of digital tools actually also, was one program in Hungary. It's called the National Entrepreneurship Mentoring Program that we try to better understand a little bit how they do that. And they had actually quite a lot of things in place. They still also try to assess better how successful the program is really happening. But I think they at least try to have more tools in place that help them to offer better mentoring support and program is from online application, from very basic to also have a pre-mentoring survey. And that's why they invested quite a lot in trying to really better understand the entrepreneurial and personal skills of those who apply to be part of this mentoring program. And that ranges from psychological inventories to something more basic knowledge and skills aspects. Then the online platform that they established also that really gives the mentees a good idea of how mentors are profiled, what they are good at, where their expertise is. And then they have this idea of supporting the self-matching processes. So also mentors sometimes can say, hey, this actually, I think I would be a good mentor for this particular founder, and also the other way around. So there is this two-way approach also in supporting self-matching processes, because some other programs, they don't do that. They actually have a supervisor who tries to pair mentees and mentors. Obviously, virtual mentee meetings are optional here, but then also they have established what they call Growth Wheel is a separate platform again. I will share later on some links to that if someone is interested, look into this more, where they also especially have a system in place where they can actually monitor and evaluate a little bit more how the process unfolds over time, that collects all the information. Another example that we found was in the Netherlands, in NL Great, which focuses on scale of entrepreneurs especially. And they also, I think, a pretty good example, and I think I won't repeat now, pretty similar to the other one, but I think also the growth test is something that maybe some of you are interested in to look into, where they also have this online evaluation platform tool to provide even more quick and frequent feedback for entrepreneurs, where they can continuously also assess how their mentoring process unfolds, how their own journey unfolds. So it provides the mentors and the mentees, and often a third person, a supervisor, also a good picture of how things unfold, to also be able to improve the decision making, for instance, also when it comes to the early growth phase or even to the scaling phase. So I think that the last two examples are two very interesting examples, and there would be obviously much more, but I just felt I give two examples where already advanced use of digital tools is in place. To wrap it up, also a little bit still on the consideration, what are the pros and cons basically still? I think I'm not kind of a huge fan of going all in with the digital tools, but I think they're needed, especially obviously since COVID-19. Obviously, it's very normal for us. And I think for youth entrepreneurship, I think it's also normal to expect a certain skill level in terms of using digital tools. But I think still it's good to discuss what are the pros and cons. Overall, I mean, it enables wider geographical reach. That there is no doubt. It provides greater flexibility for scheduling meetings, mentoring sessions. It allows to develop a rich database. And I think these days, all organizations in the startup community ecosystem, it's about developing a very, very rich database that you can build on also in the future, that you have more evidence. Then also it facilitates usually direct access to information. It reduces costs, what I also mentioned. But some of the disadvantages, perhaps also, I mean, it depends a lot on the digital skills, right? So it may also be very exclusive to some, even to young entrepreneurs, where you might expect there are digital skills in place. But we also, for instance, it might be exclusive, right? When we talk about rural entrepreneurs or small business owners in certain sectors, where you may not can expect the digital skills in place, like in a tech startup community, for instance. It always requires a supportive infrastructure, right, to make it really understandable and easy to understand, to follow. Obviously, strong internet connections and internet needs to be in place, which is also sometimes an issue actually in some regions. Overall, it reduces the personal interaction, and where it makes it a little bit more challenging also to create this sense of localness, of local community aspects, which I think for many entrepreneurs are key, especially when we talk about the networking aspects. Having role models that you actually can also, that you can meet frequently. So in a way, having rural entrepreneurs also as your mentors in the region where you live is often really essential. Maybe not so much in a city, but when we talk about rural regions, especially, personal interaction might be even more important. 5 takeaways. I thought that's also David asked me to have some concrete takeaways. I try to have them now. I would say, maybe I shouldn't call them guidelines, but I think five recommendations if one wants to develop a successful or effective mentoring support program. It should make sure to account for diversity of the target beneficiaries, right? And really make sure that there is a really good matchmaking process in place to find the right mentors, also to address the right needs of the founders and the entrepreneurs asking for support. That also links to the level of digital skills, for instance, but also making sure there's the infrastructure in place. Also, if digital tools are used to a certain extent, it's important really to provide at least training to make sure that the mentees and the mentors don't struggle with the digital tools and actually becomes a burden, right? So it should, the basis should be there that the digital tools are effectively supporting the process and don't become a barrier actually and become a bit of a pain. The third point is that digital tools only might not work. I would suggest it always in whatever you do, however fancy tools you use, in-person activity is key and essential, especially when it comes to social skills, also networking skills, to aspects that we heard today about certain competences when we talk about confidence, about other competences that are really hard to transfer or to talk about only via digital communication. It's also important to make sure that you have a regular assessment of the digital tools, also to always make sure they are really up to date and it really helps the mentoring process and are user-friendly. As a final point, I think that was something interesting that popped up in our OECD report as well, is that to have a sustainable model for mentoring programs, it already makes sense to have a paid forward system in place. That means that you try to also help mentees who are currently founders, but that you also try to stay in touch with them. You try to stay close and maybe build in the early agreements that they may also at some point become mentors. So you start building a larger pool of mentors as well through the early stage mentoring processes that they experience. And later on, a year, 2, 3 years later, they may also become mentors in the same program. And also, it's usually good to have also exit divorce options that are fairly smooth in the mentor agreement, because sometimes even if both want, still there is no match, it's still good to have options to navigate and also find a new mentor. I guess I should leave it there, otherwise we're running out of time. I hope we have still time for discussions. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ewald. We have a few minutes if there are any questions or comments on either of the 2 case study presentations. Looking around, feel free to raise your hand. Don't see any hands going up. Going once, going twice. Okay, well, we will now move on to our breakout discussions. So you will be put back into the breakout rooms, this time slightly larger, to discuss some of the questions that we talked about at the top of the agenda. So we've seen from our case study presentations, a range of discussions on financial literacy skills, business literacy skills, competences, mindsets. We've seen digital and green skills. So we can think about what kind of skills are going to be the most critical for young people to be developing in the next few years. We can also think about how policy and programs can help to support young people in acquiring these skills. So I'm now going to open up the rooms. We'll have about 15 minutes of discussion before we come back to wrap it all up. Should see the screen.